Salutations, fellow nerds. I'm Rick Y, the Wise Guy, and today is January 10th, 2025. I was going to cover the fires out here in California, but admittedly, I'm not really in the right head place for that at the moment because I saw during the hurricanes and the travesties that took place in Florida earlier, not too long ago, people across the country came together and did everything that they could to help support one another. As the fires still burn here, however, specifically conservatives have chosen to engage in blame games and political smears while grossly misrepresenting and misunderstanding everything about the water situation out here in California. And since I know so many loudmouths when it comes to their lives getting even the smallest of inconvenience, and I see them laugh as actual people's lives are ruined, I figured I should probably step away from covering the people in this country who actually represent the worst of America. Just remember that conservatives and liberals both tragically lost everything in these fires. California is a big state. I am currently in a part of it that voted overwhelmingly for both Donald Trump and Republicans across the board. They and their families have been directly affected and impacted by this as well. So really, in fairness to those who are facing the worst days of their lives, to have to face your jokes and ridicule, allow me to speak for them because they can't. When I say, from the bottom of my heart, shut the fuck up. Instead, I'm going to shoot over to the court drama because a lot of folks have very little understanding as far as the details involved. So if you enjoy news, history, and Americana in general, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Sit a spell. Take your shoes off. Donald Trump this week faced his criminal convictions in regards to falsifying business records. Because of this, his legal team tried to stay the motions, and the Supreme Court even jumped in to say, "No, no, Donnie, you need to take your little medicine like a good boy." Now, before everyone gets too excited about that, I need to remind everyone that there's a fairly large amount of strategy involved. Judge Merchan stated in his order prior to today's sentencing that he would be looking into an unconditional release. We will get back to that part, but why should the Supreme Court openly interfere with a case that they're certain won't end with a conviction? That they would only demonstrate their willingness to just kind of push their thumb on the scale before the guy even gets into office. I'm sure the unbiased judiciary isn't going to want to play their hand too quickly. There was no incentive for the Supreme Court to intervene here, even if they wanted to. Even if a broken clock is right twice a day, you really shouldn't lean on that clock to tell you the time. But back to the unconditional release. I want everyone to understand that this is not really all that shocking. If we go back to the two impeachments that Donald Trump went through in his first term, I know, it's hard to remember, but Donald Trump was impeached twice. Holds a record for it. Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, made it clear that Republicans weren't going to convict because he said that he wanted to leave Donald Trump's fate up to the voters. So, fellow voters, thanks, guys.
Our lives are in your hands and you have butterfingers?
Judge Merchan also said that this was going to happen, and to be honest, it was not known that he was facing trial. Before Election Day, Trump was not made only twice an impeached president, but an adjudicated sexual abuser. And a majority of Americans looked at it and went, yes, please, I think I'll have more of that. Anyone looking at the news that he won't be getting jack shit for any of this, like, you haven't been paying any attention. This game was over in November. I understand that a lot of people are going to be spending the upcoming few months asking what they've done, because a lot of us are still in that, like, well, maybe it'll be okay, and nothing that I said is going to happen phase. But, that's normal. Trauma is difficult, and processing it can take some time. So a lot of people are probably wondering why even have the hearing if it's not going to be ending with any punishment? And that is the billion-dollar question, isn't it? Well, not too many extravagant reasons came out of it, but important reasons still did come out of it nonetheless. To a lot of people, it may not be huge, but to legal eagles like myself, I get it. So, what came of this? First of all, it's official. Trump is now a convicted felon, and there's nothing anyone can do to change that fact. In the state of New York, you can't actually be considered a felon until your sentencing is done and over with. So it marks it in history. Donald Trump will officially be taking a second term in office as a convicted felon. First time in our history. Second, Judge Merchan also tried to flex the court's power by demonstrating that the incoming president had to appear for his trial. He even said that although the office of the presidency is extraordinary, the one who sits there is an ordinary citizen. Which I guess is true, but can kind of be said for a king, right? Person really isn't all that important. The crown is. So in some ways, this wasn't like a huge win for the legal team as much as it was a way for them to pat themselves on the back. But what is funny is Trump actually had to report to a probation officer to whom he showed no remorse and openly said that he is above the law. To a probation officer. I guess we'll see how that goes. Remember, Jack Smith was forced to drop all of his charges on the January 6th case that took place right before all of our eyes. The United States made it very clear that the government will not, under any circumstances, convict and punish a sitting president. November was the month that Americans chose to ignore the rule of law for every citizen and all but granted our executive office all of the legal rights and privileges of a monarch. It wasn't the Justice Department. It wasn't Republicans in the House. It wasn't Democrats in the Senate. I mean, if you really want a scapegoat, Merrick Garland failed to bring charges soon enough, and Trump was not held accountable in time before his election. So, sure, you can point it all there. But to be completely honest, it's on us. It's the voters. We as a society chose this. We were given the tools to help us make better decisions, and we didn't. Trump's luck in having such feckless Senate leadership during his first term who said the voters needed to hold him responsible, or all of the necessary guardrails that were supposed to take place and failed. That luck is beyond me. But just hear me out on this. Maybe Trump just highlighted how those guardrails always were really kind of hollow, and that we've only really sat in complacency as Americans this whole time. Time and time again, those in power we expected to jump in and do the right thing failed to uphold their civic responsibilities, and then admonished them. Maybe that would have been appropriate if we, the voters, hadn't done the exact same thing in capitulation to the man. It was we, not Merrick Garland, not Jack Smith or Amy Coney Barrett or Mitch McConnell. It was we, the voters, who chose to welcome back in this man into the most powerful seat of our government. So, I mean, you can scapegoat anyone that you really want if it makes you feel better. The truth is, though, is we need to do better. Too few of us did what was needed for whatever reason. And even if we won, it would have been way too close to call for comfort. And that's really just the truth of it all. We all had the information that we could have used to prevent all of this, and too many of us chose not to retain that information, either because of trust issues with media or biases or any number of reasons. We need to hold ourselves more accountable than anything else, because only then can we actually respond to this appropriately in the future. And the only way that we can do that is if we all pledge to stay informed, stay engaged, and stay decent. Y'all come back now. You hear?